Hello humans, it's Stephen again. Today I'm playing Assetto Corsa and I'd like to show you a work of art. This is the Ford Escort Mk1 RS 1600 from the early 1970s. And it's a lovely thing to look at. You may recognise it from one of the Fast and the Furious films in which it apparently appeared. I can't vouch for that because I'm a boring old man and I haven't seen the films. But it's very pretty. However, this isn't the work of art I'd like to show you. This is a skin made by a race department forum member who goes by the name of Ben Dover, and I'll put a link to it in the video description. I think this is a work of art, the amount of ingenuity that's gone into it. If you're going to slap a number on a car like this, it may as well be a 69. You'll note the cheeky exhaust below the door, the carbon staining just above the exhaust. There's mud on the left rear flap there. The number painted on the rear of the car doesn't extend to the boot. The rear window could do with a wipe. The petrol cap has a worrying amount of rust leaking from it. It's got a completely new door, so it's been involved in at least one bank robbery. Someone's just grabbed the nearest paint can and daubed 69 on it. The door doesn't fit that well. If you're feeling brave, let's have a look inside. One careful owner. Note the cigarette butts on the floor. I think the car is held together by rust. I'll just close the doors for you. That expensive Assetto Corsa door sound, rather incongruous with this rust bucket. Anyway, where are we going to drive it? I've got the very place in mind. Goodwood Motor Circuit in southern England. It's a bit of a garden party place, and this, I'm sure, will fit right in. So please join me as I do a lap of Goodwood Motor Circuit so you can see the skin in its natural element, and then I'll do a quick race with the AI. I hope you enjoyed that hot lap. The weather's cheered up a bit since then. It's now mid-afternoon and it's time for a race at the Goodwood Festival at Goodwood Motor Circuit in Sussex in southern England. Now, if we just wait for the camera to pan around and you stare in horror at the close-up of the bodywork, there next to it is how a Ford Escort should look. There, in a nutshell, is the hope and reality of the British car industry in the 1970s. And hoving into view on the left-hand side are some rather special competitors. I should mention that the Goodwood Revival is a festival which lasts for 3 days, and the only cars that are allowed to compete are classics from between 1948 and 1966, if memory serves. They're all beautiful, famous, well looked after, none of which applies to this grubby individual. More to the point, as it dates from the early 1970s, it doesn't even qualify for the race, so the stewards are phoning the police as I speak. I think I better shut up and get on with it. And we're finally behind the wheel, and look who we've got to race against. Shelby Cobras, Maseratis, Lotuses, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. Charge, here we go. Or maybe not, as all the owners suddenly realise that their priceless cars might get smashed. I'll just let them bring their insurance brokers for a few seconds. Now, just to clear up any confusion, this is the Goodwood Motor Circuit, and it's another work of art. It's a mod made by another race department forum member, Mantasys G, I think is the pronunciation. As we pass the Abarth SS Step 2, the bad boy of classic Abarths. And it's LiDAR scanned, laser scanned, which means all the undulations and elevation changes and curbing are accurate. And that's very exciting. It's a real privilege to feel as if you're in the hot seat, so to speak, and experiencing a fraction of what the real life drivers do when they go around this entertaining and frightening circuit. Now this has got a real Goodwood Revival festival feel about it, with all the lovely cars in front. Now the AI isn't perfect yet. This is version 0.8 of the circuit, and Mantasys G is preparing an update with slightly improved AI because there's the world's most uncompromising chicane coming up, and there's a fair chance the Maseratis won't like it. No, they got through it. And this may surprise you, but what you're looking at used to be Britain's premier motor racing circuit. Now, Brooklands, with its famous banked corners, there's no such word as corners, closed in 1938-39, and the Second World War got in the way somewhat. It had a habit of doing that. And after the war, people realised that there wasn't a really fast top-class motor circuit on which to race. I'll just take a second to admire the Porsche 718 RS60 Spider in front of me. Proof that manufacturers have always used ridiculously long and unromantic names for their motor cars, and that tradition continues to this day. But I thoroughly recommend the Porsche. It comes in one of the DLC Porsche packs. I can't remember which one, but it's one of the most beautiful cars ever built in my opinion, and it's very enjoyable to drive. I always imagine that Sir Stirling Moss is behind the wheel of the Assetto Corsa model. So, as I was saying, after the Second World War there wasn't really anywhere to hold top-class motor racing. And the Duke of Richmond had donated this land to the war effort, and RAF West Hamptonette, oh lord, was built in it. Now you see what I mean about the AI there. And in 1948 some bright spark said, what about the perimeter road? That would be fun to drive around. And the Duke of Richmond said, you know, that's a jolly good idea. And in 1948 he drove his Bristol 400 car on the perimeter road and inaugurated the Goodwood Motor Circuit. As we come up to this Alfa Romeo GTA, which I always like watching on a circuit like this, it rolls around like a Spanish galleon. And keep your eye on the suspension here. Oh, can't cope with it. Now that's relevant, I'll come back to that in a second. So, as I was saying, for the next 20 years everyone raced happily at Goodwoods, and by everyone I mean everyone in British motorsport. Any famous driver or marque that you can think of came here, and lots of continental legends and American ones too. But in the mid-60s, the racing authorities said, look, cars are getting too fast. You're going to have to slow them down with a chicane or two. And Herman Tilke fans, please note, Goodwood said, no thank you, we'd rather not ruin our motor circuit. And that was the end of official top-class motorsport at Goodwood. And that's the Maserati 250F in front of us, and it's the 6-cylinder version. You can tell because it's got just the one exhaust pipe on the left. The 12-cylinder version has an exhaust either side of the abdomen-like bodywork. And as ever, when it comes to Italian cars, Assetto Corsa pulled out all the stops and produced an absolutely wonderful model of the car. And since Goodwood closed its doors to the echelon of motorsport, the top echelon, it's been home to enthusiast clubs and track days and things. But it did go into a slight decline. But the 9th Duke's grandson said, let's restore it. And lo and behold, it was done. And it was restored to its original condition, on track and off track, behind the scenes. And in 1998, 50 years to the day that his grandfather drove the Bristol 400 around here, the present Duke drove the self-same car to celebrate the revival of the Goodwood circuit. And this festival, the Goodwood Revival Festival, celebrates that reopening. Now, what that says about social mobility in Britain, I wouldn't care to say, but it's undeniably a romantic image. Goodness me, an actual overtake. Nosebleed territory. And so, this is a special place. It's pretty unique in motorsport. There aren't many places that have preserved what an old circuit used to be like, with the almost non-existent curbing and the bumps and terrifying high-speed corners, of which that was one. Now, there's a culture of preservation in Britain, especially amongst railway fans. In the mid-50s, Dr. Beeching swung his infamous axe and closed thousands of miles of railway lines and hundreds of railway stations, and railway enthusiasts were shocked to the core by this. Whether you think Beeching was right or wrong, personally I think he was misguided at best. But preserved railways sprung up all over Britain, and enthusiasts rescued steam locomotives from scrapyards, and now you can go to all these marvellous places and experience the best form of time travel possible, where everything you see and touch and smell and hear is from another century. And Goodwood Motor Circuit, particularly on festival days, is very like that. It's like time travel. Now, why am I talking about preservation and history and boring stuff like that? Well, the internal combustion engine is on its way out. The UK has said that they want them to be gone, and Nissan has just announced it's taking part in Formula E this year. And things happen quicker than you think. In the mid-1950s, Britain's railways were run almost entirely by steam locomotives. And 13 years later, they'd all gone, every last one of them. As I stamp on the brakes. So change can happen quicker than you think. World Rallycross is going electric. So, I know motoring enthusiasts don't like to think about it, but I think we're on the cusp of a massive change, and who knows, places like this might be the only place you get to see these classic cars stretch their legs. And who knows what's going to be a classic car in the future. I'm not sure about the current Ford Escort, but you never know. Hello, it's a Lotus 25 gone off. Someone's going to have to raid their trust fund. And we're coming up to Madgwick Corner, which I always call Magic Corner because it's a double apex and you need witchcraft to get around it quickly. It's also probably the bumpiest part of the circuit, and the AI can do the samba as they come out of the corner. This is Ford water, which you could take flat out if the tyres have warmed up. And that's the 12-cylinder version of the Maserati with the 2 exhaust pipes. I'll just let you have a look at it. As I slide off the circuit. Sorry, got caught out there. But that's what a circuit like this can do with these old cars with their soft suspension and promises of braking. This is the Levant corner, followed by the Levant straight. It's hard to get the power on coming out of this corner. Now, with circuits of this age, there's often tragedies and unfortunate stories to be told, and this straight is one of them. This is where Bruce McLaren died in 1970. He was testing a car and the bodywork failed, and the car slid off into the infield and hit an object, and that was that, I'm afraid. And this is also the circuit where Stirling Moss had his terrible crash that, to all intents and purposes, ended his career. And that's a Ferrari 250 that's gone off. And that's 2 trust funds being raided. And turn the car in early, just graze the curb. Now we're coming up to St Mary's, which is where Moss had his accident. I think he must have come off around about here because he drove into a bank, and this is St Mary's officially here, and had a terrible smash. And famously, Sir Stirling has the steering wheel which is almost bent double, and it fits his forehead perfectly, which shows the strength of the impact as his head smashed against the steering wheel. And legend has it that the force of the impact popped out one of his eyes, and he's said to have mentioned that he hoped the nurses washed it before they put it back in. I'm on the grass. Talking and driving is not my forte. Now, Stirling Moss recently retired from public life, so I wish him well. And you never know, maybe he's behind the wheel of one of these simulators having a whale of a time and railing against the turn 1 wheel jockeys. I hope he's showing them a clean pair of heels. Now, you might have noticed that the dashboard of this car is different from the one you saw in the preview. I'm not sure why that is. It's obviously a kink of the mod installation, but it's heavily influenced by the Jeremy Clarkson school of thinking. The speedo and the rev meter don't have numbers on them. The rev meter just says more power, and then at the top end just says bang, which is fair enough. What more do you need? Although I think this Ford Escort Mk1 revs for about 6,500. And the speedometer just says go faster. Top Gear has a lot to answer for. And we really must get past this Escort. It's putting us to shame. And this is Woodcut, where you can get to scare all the car enthusiasts. And this is officially known as The Chicane, and it's the definite article, to borrow a Doctor Who joke. Now here we go, double apex. You can take it in fourth if you're warmed up, if not, drop down to third for safety. Swing it out and then back to the apex. Those X's mark the apex and they're very handy. That's the 12-cylinder Maserati there, the 2 exhaust pipes. Oh, Lord. The car wanted to wander all over the place under brakes. Ah! Talking and driving. It's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. You can see how all the cars are rocking and rolling because of the bumps and undulations, and it really does make it a challenge in these older cars. But having said that, it's drivable, whereas if you were to take a modern high downforce car, Formula 1 car for instance, you'd come a cropper. The very stiff suspension in modern cars does not react well, it doesn't play nicely with a surface like this, and there's a pretty good chance if you were to take a modern Formula 1 car out on Goodwood that you'd skip off the track. Whereas the softer suspension on these old bangers is much more forgiving. So here we go, fourth gear, slight brake, aim for the apex, drift out again, aim for the apex, bit of oversteer on the exit, keep your foot in, stay off the grass. And who's this coming up? Blue flag, is it? Oh, it's a Shelby Cobra. Now, that's the essence of the Goodwood Festival. If you're going to be overtaken by a car, it's going to be a looker. Oh, that's a really innocuous looking corner. It's much more difficult than you might think. Ah, now the AI having a contretemps there. Again, this is a double apex. Very tricky at times. We'll get back on the road. And this chicane seems to get narrower the longer the race goes on. So, Assetto Corsa at the moment, its fans are very excited about the advent of, or the announcement of, the classic Goodwood manoeuvre there. The ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is going to be a recreation of the 2018 Blonde Pan series, which looks very exciting. But for the moment, Assetto Corsa's modding scene is going from strength to strength, as this circuit and the skin on this stock content car amply demonstrate. And sim racers are very lucky to have such dedicated people to abuse their creations. I'm driving like an utter clot here. I think for the moment we're in glorious isolation. Ooh, almost. Now, if you're a fan of online racing, I recommend trying SRS, which is an automated way of having races online. There's an app which incorporates into Assetto Corsa and makes it all seamless and painless. And a lot of people who prefer to race offline, yours truly included, have found it a quick and easy way of dipping their toes in the online water. So give it a try. And I mention that because it's come to Race Room Racing Experience this weekend as well. The service has just started there. Now that should be very interesting to see if people take that up. I'm definitely going to investigate that. Now this has become less a race than a sedate parade, and perhaps that's appropriate for the Goodwood Festival. Now late brake, fourth, third, get the nose turned in, feather it through, get the nose turned in again, don't let the back come out, stay off the curb, which you failed to do. Down to second, take it easy because you'll damage the car. And boot it out, there we are. Right, final lap. A small technical point, I've enlarged the field of view again for this video so you can see a bit more of the car and the mirrors. And please let me know if that's your cup of tea. I know field of view is a bit of a controversial topic in the sim racing community. I think the bottom line is do whatever you enjoy the most. Now straighten the car up for St Mary's, and you can accelerate into that corner if you get it right. I didn't there. Third gear, keep it tucked in, otherwise you slide off, you get on the grass and you'll just end up in the next county. That's it. A combination of oversteer and understeer on this corner. There we go, onto the straight. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and that my rattling on didn't irritate you too much. And if you're thinking of giving sim racing a go, I thoroughly recommend it. Have a plunge. Get yourself a cheap wheel or even a controller and dive in. Enjoyment awaits. Now I'm off for a cup of tea and a cucumber sandwich. So, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.